Hey everyone, it's Ricky Molina from the Ricky Molina YouTube channel. Glad you could be with me today. Today I'd like to do a product review for two online mixing courses that I've taken and I'm actually still actively involved in and as a subscriber, and I highly recommend them to you. Now I've taken a ton of courses online primarily over the years to improve my mixing and production skills. And they're all very, very good. And I've learned a ton from them all. And each has its particular strengths. But these two particular courses I think are worth having a look at. The first is the MPG Music Production School, which was founded and is taught by Mike White. Now Mike White has a lot of experience having mixed for Whitney Houston in particular. He worked on a lot of albums at the Hit Factory in New York City. And he's taught at SAE, which is an audio institute in New York City as well. So we're talking about a guy who's very experienced. The second course I'd like to talk about is puremix.net, which was founded by Fabrice Dupont. And Fabrice has assembled, just an incredible team of mixing engineers. Some of them you've probably heard of. Some well-known names like Andrew Sheps, Chris Lord-Alge, Mick Guzowski, Greg Wells, Jakir King, Al Schmidt, Daryl Tharp, Mark Needham, and a bunch of others. So some very highly respected names in the industry. So let's talk about puremix.net first, and then we'll get into MPG Music School second. Now puremix.net is available for a monthly subscription fee as well as, pay once a year type of thing, annual renewal. If you do the 12-month pay in one shot type of deal, that'll be about $25 times 12 or about $300 a year. When you consider the cost of a lot of audio engineering schools today, Berkeley, Sale, University, SAE, USC, etc., you're talking about thousands and thousands of dollars. And they do not necessarily have the top mixing engineers that Fabrice has assembled at puremix.net. So when you think about it, getting all this incredible knowledge and expertise at your fingertips and learning from the pros, some of the best in the industry, $25 a month really isn't that bad a deal. As far as my experiences with the courses is concerned, while some of these are incredible mixing engineers, and I don't want to mention any names in particular, I found that some are better teachers than others. Fabrice I found to be an incredible teacher. He has that teacher in him, that educator in him. Sheps is also a very, very good teacher. He's trying to explain the process as he's going along. That may not be the case with some of the others. I kind of get the impression as though some of these other experienced engineers, although they're masters at what they do, they're not necessarily good explainers. They're not clarifying the process, what's going in their head as they're doing things, for whatever reason. Either it's not because they're the best educators, or it could be because they don't want to necessarily share with you all the tricks that they have up their sleeve. And I found that to be a little bit of a problem. Having said that, you do come out of each class with a feeling as though you've sat through a mix session with some of the best in the industry, and that's worth its weight in gold. Another potential negative for some may be that the instructors are not accessible. You cannot shoot them an email and expect them to get back to you. They won't. You'll get customer support getting back to you for whatever questions you have, but you won't get Fab, you won't get Sheps, you won't get any of the other guys. You won't get any of these big names coming back to you, replying to your email or questions. So forget that. And there are also no one-on-one classes with them. I've noticed that some of these successful mixing engineers have joined other programs that have offered one-on-one teaching sessions, but the classes are incredibly expensive. It's like you fly to some posh resort in like Lausanne, Switzerland, or Tuscany, Italy, and you sit down and you mix with them and they show you and they walk you through the whole thing. I know that Tony Maserati has a program like that, for example. You get to interact with the instructor directly. Of course, that's thousands of dollars we're talking about, but it could be well worth the investment for some of you who want to be incredible mixing engineers. In my case, I happen to be more of a composer type and less of a mixing engineer wannabe. Yes, I want to know how to produce incredible mixes. That's why I'm investing in all these courses, but I'm not necessarily willing to pay thousands of dollars to become an incredible mixing engineer. That's not my goal. It may be for you. Another plus that I've experienced with taking puremix.net is that Fabrice is always coming up with new seminars, so he keeps it interesting. And he also throws in a couple of freebies. Like recently, his company, Process Audio, came out with a plugin called Sugar. You may have heard of it. And it's really a combination of multi-band compression and saturation and EQ all in one. It's a very powerful program. You have to learn how to use it properly, I think. It can be a little dangerous in some instances, but it's a powerful program and it has its uses for sure. That I got for free as being a member of the course, which was the plugin was about, at least $150 in value, perhaps even more. I'm not sure what it's going for, but as a pro member of puremix.net, I got Sugar for free. And I've really learned a lot from taking all of the courses from the various instructors. My favorite instructors at puremix.net have been Fabrice himself. I think he's an excellent teacher as well as a mixing engineer. He has sort of both sides of the brain going. Sheps is also an incredible teacher. I've learned a lot from the Al Schmidt course, for example. I don't think I would have gotten that anywhere else in the world. And for me, the Al Schmidt experience, he walks you through a tracking and recording. So it's like tracking and mixing and production. And the Al Schmidt course for me is worth 1,000 times the cost of the course because Al Schmidt is a minimalist guy. And in a previous video, I talk about this. I can't stress minimalism enough when it comes to the mixing process. And I really learned that and got the vibe totally from Al Schmidt by watching the videos that are available on puremix.net from Al Schmidt. And Al Schmidt is not, a great teacher necessarily, but if you're watching him and you're getting the message, it's like, I am not throwing a ton of plugins on this. I'm going to let my miking techniques do most of the EQing for me. I don't necessarily need compression on my bass, etc., etc. It's like this minimalist approach that you can learn a ton from. So I highly recommend this course for many reasons, and despite some of its minor shortcomings, I think this course is a very worthwhile investment. Next, we have Mike White's MPG Music Production School. This is an awesome service. It's kind of like a hidden gem in the music education business. I'm so glad I discovered the MPG Music School online. And, first of all, like I said, Mike White is this experienced mixing engineer. He kind of honed his trade in the studios of New York City at the Hit Factory. He's mixed and helped produce Whitney Houston's records. So obviously, if you're mixing vocals, Mike White is your man. Another awesome thing about Mike White, I find, is that he's a superb educator. Not only has he written a book on editing audio using Pro Tools, which is available on Amazon. And he taught for like 9 or 10 years at the SAE Institute in New York City, where he taught mixing, mastering, and audio production. So obviously we're talking about an experienced teacher here. And I have to say that, some people are born to be teachers, and Mike White is one of those people. He just has this incredible ability to explain the thought process. I happen to be a certified teacher as well. I've got a graduate degree in education as well. And one of the things that's important as a teacher is you have to be able to use what they call a think aloud process. Think aloud process. And what that is essentially is while you're doing something, if it's especially like mixing and mastering and music production, you want to be able to explain what's going on in your mind as you're doing it. So you're going to be talking out loud. Now I'm listening to this vocal track and I notice that it sounds a bit too tinny. And to correct for this, one of the things we can do is we can look at, for example, early reflections in the reverb. Or we could look at changing the attack and release in a compressor. Or we can use EQ to maybe tame things a little bit on the high end. And then he shows you how he's doing this every step of the way. So this think aloud process, I notice, is very, very prevalent in Michael White's instruction, which I find to be incredibly valuable. I find that he has a great disposition and attitude, something tells me that Mike White has this like physics, audio, engineering background. So he understands the physics behind sound as well. So when he's talking about, for example, room setup for recording, or to change the transients in an event, the sound waves that are recorded in the DAW, you know, what is a transient? What is attack? What is decay? What is sustain and release, ADSR? You know, what are the physics behind that? And how are plugins going to be used to change the ADSR or to change the ambience effects? So a thorough knowledge and understanding of the physics, which he explains in his courses, is essential to understanding how to become a good audio mixing engineer. Another major plus for Mike that I've found is he has an incredible understanding and awareness of plugins that are coming out. He does a very, very thorough review of the plugin and what it can do for you and what it can't do for you. So whenever there's a plugin that's coming out on the market and I'm considering buying it, one of the first things I do is I always look up a Mike White video, plugin review of that particular plugin. And then if Mike gives it a thumbs up, then it's probably a very good choice. And another good thing about Mike's courses is that I've noticed that he has a nice selection, varied selection, different styles of music when he's teaching a class. How many times has it occurred to you when you're taking a mixing course and the instructor's like, yeah, let's check out how to use this particular plugin in the mix, and they press play and the mix is like this awful track and you can't stand it, and it's like particular type of genre, and I'm not going to mention any genres in particular, but everybody has a particular fondness for certain genres and styles of music. There's something to be said for choosing music for your courses that are appealing to a wide audience and not necessarily driving you into a particular style all the time. That can make you nauseous after a while. Another nice thing that Mike White has done is he's got a bunch of free courses that are available online. If you go to his MPG Basic, he's got Fundamentals of Mixing class, for example, is free. And that's an incredible class in itself. I learned a ton from that. I took notes like crazy as I was taking that class. And so I highly recommend it. There's a lot of good free stuff on Mike White's site. As far as the paid classes are concerned, Mike is covering the gamut here. He's got courses on basic mixing, advanced mixing, mastering mixing, master mixing, and then he's got courses on mastering and music production, and even a career builder course. And they're all available at very, very reasonable prices. There's like a $29 one-year access fee for these courses, which is an incredible deal. And, they're there for you, $29 for the entire year. I mean, that's quite a reasonable fee. And these courses are quite thorough. It's not like they're 15 minutes or something. We're talking about, maybe about 10 episodes, each of length of about 30 minutes or so. So you're really getting your money's worth. So I really feel as though I got a very solid education by taking Mike White's courses. Another feature that he offers is the one-on-one power mixing and power mastering and power production courses. These are one-on-one interactive courses. I think some of these courses actually have small classes where you share your mixes with other fellow students and you talk about them and discuss them, and Mike kind of leads the review process there. I haven't taken these courses yet. I'd love to take one of these power courses down the road. The advantage of a power course or an interactive course is that it's like going into the lab after you've learned about a particular physics or science subject, in the textbook, or you go through a video course where you got the foundations down, but then you got to go into the lab and you got to get your hands dirty and actually tinker and tweak things in the lab. That's when you begin to go to a higher level. And I think that's what will ultimately separate really, really great mixers from pretty good mixers. You need that apprenticeship experience. I don't think there's any substitute for apprenticeship when it comes to mixing particularly. So in summary, I'd just like to say that, no one course is going to be the end-all be-all. I think what you need to do is take courses from a bunch of different instructors in any particular subject that you're interested in. You can always learn something new from each one of them. Just remember that mixing and mastering and producing music is a craft that takes years and years, and you're constantly learning new things. You know, those 10,000 hours are very important. One of the things you have to be careful of is that you don't spend, the 9,000th hour using a bad technique. If you're practicing something and you're doing something incorrectly or not efficiently, then that's something that you would need to learn from someone with more experience who's going to be able to highlight that to you and say, hey, well, maybe you should check out this approach instead. I think you're doing this, maybe it's a little harsh, or whatever it is that you're doing wrong. The point is, if you want to get to a very high level, you need to know that this is the correct path you're taking and not to go down the wrong path. Another tip that I'd like to mention is that when you're taking courses, it's always a good idea to have a dedicated notebook for a particular course or subject matter. So, you have a nice big notebook ready to go to take notes and reactionary questions that you may have, because it's not just a matter of regurgitating everything onto paper. It's about being interactive with the learning process, writing down your questions as you're going. Like, the instructor says this and this is a good idea, but what about if we tried this? Or what's wrong with trying this? That type of interaction when you're learning is very essential. If you're just like taking in information and you're not reacting to the information, you're not being a good student. A good student is always questioning along the way. It's not just taking in stuff like, oh, this is the Word of God. It's not the Word of God necessarily. You have to question everything that's coming your way and view it at first with a little bit of suspicion. I think that's always healthy in learning. Not just to be like programmed with new knowledge, like loading a CD-ROM into your brain. I don't think that's a healthy learning experience. Once again, I'm an educator. I've learned about the learning process. And I can tell you that my favorite students are not the ones who are just like sitting down and like phasing out or just writing down things. I always love a student who is like engaged with the discussion. That definitely turns on teachers, and it makes things much more interesting in the learning process. Another suggestion I have when you're learning these things, if the information is coming at you too fast and you just simply cannot take notes to cover information or certain visuals particularly, what I like to do is I like to literally take the copy screen functions on a Mac or PC as I'm learning, the print screen or the copy the screen function, and literally paste moments of a video production into a spreadsheet. And I will review that spreadsheet in the future, like when it comes to, like, say, mixing bass versus mixing drums or mixing lead vocals or guitars. You know how the mixing instructors will show you the plugins that they're using? Well, I'm actually going to take a snapshot of not only the inserts on the DAW, but I'm also going to take snapshots of the plugin GUI and put them into my spreadsheet. And you can use a PowerPoint slide presentation or Word if you want instead, and just put them into the spreadsheet or the Word or the PowerPoint, so that when you go back and you're like, oh, how do we mix bass again? What did Mike White say, or what did Fabrice say about mixing vocals? There's my spreadsheet on how to mix bass by Mike White, and I've got boom, 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 boom. Now, it's not quite the same thing as having the instructor, explain everything that's going on, but at least you have the visuals in place that you can refer to. And I think that's very essential when it comes to mixing. You're looking at your DAW and you're like, now what? Sometimes you need just a little kickstart, and you get that by having something like this at your fingertips, the visual sequence of the plugins or the process. Now, what I've done is I've distilled a lot of information from the various courses and books that I have on mixing and music production, and I've actually put them into a cheat sheet type of thing, where essentially it's a checklist that I have. So, okay, let's just make sure we covered all the bases before we print this song. And I'm not going to go into all the details of what's on that checklist. Maybe I'll have a separate video someday about that. But it's very important that you have this checklist approach and this information at your fingertips. When you take a course, it's not like just watching a movie where you watch it and it kind of goes in one ear, and then a couple of months later you've forgotten completely what the plot was about or whatever. this stuff has got to be information that you can use in a pragmatic manner. So taking good notes is essential. Having visual spreadsheets that summarize key points is essential, and having a checklist also is very important. And finally, I think you'll be glad to have come across these two courses that I mentioned, the puremix.net and the MPG Music School by Michael White. Well, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like and subscribe. I'd appreciate that, as this will give me incentive to make more videos like this. Hope you enjoyed it. Have a great day.